Hello, I'm Anja from Berlin. I found Harry on a cold day in January 2013. Harry kind of jumped into my life without even knowing it. From one day to the other, he became one of the most important persons in my life, and also the life of my husband. I will tell you our story with Harry. We had bought a wonderful house in Berlin, and I had started a research on the history of that house. So I found Josef Schlossmann, Harry's grandfather. Schlossmann lived in the house for 40 years. In the year 1942, at the age of 82, he was deported to Theresienstadt, where he died of cold and hunger. A very sad and touching story. We decided to install a Stolperstein for him, a brass memorial in the pavement of our house. And we started to look for relatives of Josef Schlossmann to maybe find out a little more about him and his family. Wonderful internet. Only a few clicks later, I found Harry Hurwitz and his blog. He sounded like a very clever guy, philosopher, writer, professor. Could I just send an email to him? I was a bit shy and decided not to write directly to him, but to his son, Mark. And so it started. Mark answered very quickly. Emails flew back and forth the Atlantic, and the same day I got an email by Harry Hurwitz himself. I was very excited. But Harry was kind of cautious and a bit suspicious. I don't know what your interests in our family history are, or for what purposes this information is to be used, he wrote. I could allay his fears. Though I'm a journalist, I did not plan to feed the yellow press with stories about him and his family. And Harry became curious. More and more, he enjoyed my questions, enjoyed thinking about his past in Berlin and about his grandfather. He had a lot of memories of the house, of the big Berliner Zimmer, the birds' aviary in the middle of the room, the stuffed animals on the walls, the Minerva car, the chauffeur, the little dog, and the family dinners each Friday night, which were very boring for little 8 years old Harry. Harry's letters were wonderful, wise, full of humor and full of precious informations. Of course, he wrote in English, and me too. Time by time, he sprinkled some German words in his sentences like Geheimkommerzienrat or Herrenzimmer or Eisbombe. Very charming. So charming that I kind of fell in love with Harry just per email. My husband became a little bit jealous because I spent too much time with this stranger on the other side of the Atlantic. In summer 2013, we installed the Stolperstein for Josef Schlossmann. Harry could not attend, but he wrote a touching letter and we sent photographs of the ceremony. Actually, our relationship could have ended then, but the love story went on. We sent birthday greetings, wrote Christmas cards. Franka and Tim visited us in Berlin, and they invited us to their house in Florida, next to Harry's and Hilde's house. In February 2016, the great day had come. We traveled to Florida to visit Harry and Hilde and Franca and Tim in Fort Myers. When we arrived, we were very nervous. How would Harry be in reality? Would we like each other's? Would it be difficult to talk about the past? I felt like a little girl just before her first date, so shy, so insecure, so nervous. Would he be as charming as he seemed to be in his letters? How much time would he be able to spend with us? How resilient was this more than 90 years old man? And would our English be good enough to have challenging talks about national socialism in Germany and about the horrible story of Harry's grandfather? We entered Harry's house, and there he was, waiting impatiently. Standing in the middle of the room, small, lively, with bright eyes, behind big glasses. What could we say? How could we find the first word? Harry knew what to do. He just came to me and put his arms around me. Then around my husband, Alexander. Anja, du hast mich gesucht und gefunden. You looked for me and you found me. He said it in German, his wonderful German, a little old-fashioned, but perfect. I did not know that he had trained his German more than 80 years by reading German poets and philosophers like Goethe, Schiller and Kant, and of course by talking to his wife Hilde. He always made me write in my very bad English and never told me that he would have easily understood letters in German. Dir, Anja, haben wir es zu verdanken, dass wir zusammen sind und über Josef Schlossmann sprechen können, he said. You, Anja, made us come together and talk about Josef Schlossmann and about the past. Thank you so much. I nearly cried. I had not expected such a noble and generous gesture. To make a long story short, Harry was even more charming in reality than in his emails. So lively, so enterprising, so intelligent, so educated, so thoughtful. I did not know any person like him, and he was more than 90 years old. Every day we had long talks. Every day he wanted to do little trips to show us, for example, a nice diner, a typical US pork restaurant, or the wild nature with alligators. He was proud of going more than 7,000 steps a day. In the evening, he was not tired at all. He wanted to go out, to have dinner with us, to drink wine, and to talk. It was a wonderful week with him and Hilde, with Franca and Tim. Now, we are very sad that Harry is not with us anymore. But even after his death, he and Hilde had a big surprise for us. They sent us some of his ashes and his last will to bury him in our Berlin garden. We will do that the same day you, his family and friends will come together in Toronto to remember Harry. So one part of Harry came back to the place where his grandfather lived and from where his family was expelled. Harry, who had 4 different nationalities and who was forced to move so many times in his life, returned to his birthplace, Berlin, and will rest in peace under our plum tree. The circle is closed.